Order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Present.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Here.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Parzak?
Here.
Mrs. Rich?
Here.
The meeting is now open. Adequate notice of the meeting was provided by posting a copy of the time and place on the municipal clerk's bulletin board and mailing a copy of same to the press and the Cape May County Herald on January 4th, 2019. Will everyone please rise to salute the flag? Before we get started, Councilman Moore had asked that I just mention the fact he's the Utilities, Chair of the Utilities Committee. Just mention the fact that do not be alarmed at this duplicate water and sewer bill that you're getting, and don't pay both of them. And you'll see that the second one, there is the small print that says this is the correct one, pay that one. So if there's anybody who's alarmed, or if you paid both, like Bunny probably did, then you'll get credited for that. But just do not be alarmed or think that you are confused. So Councilman Moore just wanted me to make that, just bring that up. Yes, yes. Apparently, the excess charges were not tallied on the initial bill. So the excess charges were then tallied, and you then got another bill that included those charges. Bunny Parzak. Okay, moving on. Do we have any communications?
Yes, Mayor, we have a little note from John Reddy. Suzanne, please share this with Mayor and Council in open session. Congratulations on the hard work and determination you each had in securing our source of sand from Hereford Inlet to replenish our beach. I know this impacts Avalon and Wildwood as well, and your cooperative work with those municipalities and with our state Congressman Jeff Van Drew is a testament to each of you, that by working together on a common cause, you have shown us all that the teamwork on council is alive and well. Especially when something is this important. This is a job well done. It wasn't easy to do, and you should be commended on this achievement. The residents and visitors thank each of you. To quote our president, this is huge. And by the way, thanks for making the right decision on not touching our dunes. It's a great day to be a resident and a taxpayer in Stone Harbor. John Reddy, 1605th.
Very nice. Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Can I have a motion to receive this communication and make it a part of the record?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? May I have a motion concerning the minutes?
Yes, since all the members of council have been provided with a copy of the minutes of the work session and the meeting of October 15th, 2019, the special meeting at 9 a.m. on Saturday, November 2nd, the special meeting at noon on November 5th, 2019, and the work session and meeting of November 5th, 2019. So if there's no additions or corrections, I move that we dispense with the reading of these minutes and they be approved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll now have public comment. Anyone wishing to address mayor and council may do so at this time by coming forward to the microphone and stating your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Walt Fredrickson, and I, along with my partner, James Harkins, own our home at 126 91st Street, where we've had the pleasure of residing for the last 18 years. I spoke before this chamber at the council session on November 5th regarding the matter of height regulations and third-floor deck issues, specifically as respects the renovation project at our next-door neighbor, 108 91st Street. In the weeks following my appearance here, we continue to have great concern over the interpretation that resulted in a radical change in the enforcement of Code 560-33. The next section of comments that I have to share, I debated whether really I wanted to interject this, but I think that's imperative for those in this body to hear my personal experience at the Stone Harbor Construction Office. By no means want to represent this as the full body of work that this individual I will be commenting on has portrayed or exhibited at their position in the construction office, but they are my personal experiences, and I think it's relative for you to hear about them. All visits were really prompted out of concern over what we suspected to be code violations as the project was ongoing. And we attended, or we went to the construction office really with the explicit intent to receive guidance and instruction from the officials within that department. It's important to note that all of the examples that I give were all from one individual in that office.
Just 1 minute, Mr. Frederickson. I'm just going to have to caution you on where we're headed. If it's a personnel complaint, it's not appropriate for open session
Okay.
to receive complaints on borough employees in an open session.
All right?
So I'm just, if that's where we're headed, I'm just cautioning you. And we do have, I mean, there is a way for you to register complaints you may have.
Okay. Yeah. I had no intent to name this individual. I simply wanted to give examples of commentary that was directed at me. So I don't know, would that be considered a?
I'll refer to the solicitor.
So the problem being that the number of employees is not infinitely large, and
Right.
do you see what I'm saying? By the process of elimination, you basically, even without naming them, people understand who it is.
Okay, well,
Okay, and
Yeah.
the appropriate forum would be for you to direct your complaints to the business administrator?
which I have.
Okay, and then allow them to go from there.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks for that clarification. So, as I've noted, we have continued to be concerned over the permit approval for the project next door. Approvals that radically departed from those that existed for the past few decades here in Stone Harbor. As he explained to me, Ray's ruling, his interpretation, if you will, is based entirely on the following code wording: except for structures with flat roofs. I met Ray today. He's a very nice individual. We talked about lot grading issues. He was very informative in his delivery to me, and I in no way want to do any kind of character assassination, if you will. But I personally find the explanation that the approval was based on the wording, except for structures with flat roofs. I think it just, for me, is highly irregular, and frankly, for me, flies in the face of logic. It also runs contrary to the existing code verbiage, I think, that we have in 560-33, and also runs contrary to precedent that has been established over the last 25 years in Stone Harbor. As stated in my initial appearance, 108 91st Street could never be construed to be a flat roof structure. Again, for me, examples of flat roof structures would be motel properties on 2nd Avenue, and a number of condo structures that are within Stone Harbor. What I am calling for from the mayor and council tonight is full transparency concerning this entire matter. More specifically, I am asking for a full review and audit of the entire permit process regarding the project at 108 91st Street, to include who was involved in the original review, who challenged the code, and what was the involvement of other construction office officials and/or borough members, administration members, in the final rendering of Ray's decision. I would ask that this proposal be given serious consideration, and I would greatly appreciate the courtesy of being informed of the outcome of that review. In an exploratory effort, our concerns have prompted us to seek legal counsel on this matter, and we will review all options before us. In closing, it's been over 2 weeks since we filed the appeal regarding this code interpretation and since I last spoke before this body. As I mentioned, I met with Ray earlier this afternoon, where he advised me that the appeal was put on the calendar for review early in January, which pleases me. I would be interested in hearing from any of you if there are any other efforts or additional actions that may be occurring to address our concerns and requests for corrective action at this renovation.
There is a process, and the solicitor can educate counsel to the process of how you would go about appealing this, and as far as the question asking us for a full audit or investigation into the initial permitting and so on and so forth, I'm not sure, again, I'm going to defer to the solicitor how we handle that.
So
Sure.
the corrective action, one of the items of corrective action that has been taken is that there's an ordinance amendment on for second reading that clarifies this and eliminates the possibility of it occurring in the future. Relative to the appeal process and what can be done, I have given that advice to the business administrator. At this point, it's under the attorney-client privilege. I don't want to discuss it in public session.
Sure.
If you have counsel that you have retained and you want him to reach out to me, I'm happy to speak with him
Great.
or her.
Perfect.
Okay?
Thank you. So the appeal has been filed.
And you filed the appeal at the zoning board?
I filed the appeal with Jill.
Well, he handed it to me.
Yeah, I
when we
handed
went
it to
the zoning
Jill
board, yeah.
Okay,
during our
and it's
meeting.
an appeal to be heard by the zoning board.
Correct, yeah.
And I guess the process will continue to flow out, and I believe Carrie said that it sometime early in January, and I will obviously be in attendance.
And you're represented, sir, by counsel at that appeal?
I most likely will be,
Okay.
yeah. So I guess my question is there any other action that is being taken by council members regarding my last plea for assistance in addressing this matter?
With regard to what we can publicly state, the action that's being taken is to amend the ordinance at this point in time. And I've circulated a memo to Jill that I want council to read before we discuss it further in public session.
Yeah, and with all due respect, that's great that you're firming up the wording of the code, and I applaud that effort. However, my concern and direction is, in my personal opinion, I believe we've made a grave mistake regarding the property next door to me, and I am seeking that to be addressed. And in life, there are people who play according to the rules, and there are people who don't. I can leave experts to decide how the owner next to us, where that person falls. There have already been a number of code violations that Jill told me had to be removed and corrected that will cost this individual some money. Our intent is not to cause financial harm to anyone. Our intent is the impact on the value of our home and our property, which is quite substantial, and just to have corrective action taken where there is what we feel just outright violation of existing codes and efforts to manipulate existing codes to their advantage, in our opinion.
Okay?
All right? So I guess there are no other actions that you can speak of,
Not at this point.
other than that it's in the appeal process.
Other than you have put it in the appeal process.
Then I put it in the appeal process, yes, that's
Yes,
correct.
and we're taking this ordinance action, and I will speak with counsel directly relative to the memo we generated. At
Okay.
this point, there's nothing we can discuss more
Okay.
publicly.
I respect that. Thank you very much. I appreciate your attendance, your attention to my issues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to address mayor and council?
Ron Soldano, Ocean View. A couple of things, and the first would be for Jill. You mentioned regarding the Hereford Inlet dredging, an exemption. Can you elaborate a little bit what that exemption is all about?
In the regulations, in order for someone to use federal funding to, actually, to use the funding for a project, you're not allowed, the original thing, without an exemption, you can't take, for example, you can't take the sand out of the borrow area, which is in the CBRA, and put it outside of that area. Their interpretation was we weren't exempt from that, but there's several different exemptions in terms of welfare, health and safety of the environment and to homes. That's one of the exemptions that we felt we qualified for, and in fact, prior years actually did qualify for. So the Secretary of Interior basically agreed with our interpretation and said, yes, that is a legitimate exemption, and has advised Fish and Wildlife that that's how they should be looking at it.
Thank you,
Did I
Ryan.
answer that, Craig?
Yeah, no, I was unaware of all that, but you've explained it. Is the fact that there was precedence for that, did that have an impact on being granted that exemption?
I would think so. That was the impression that I got when we met with the Secretary of Interior.
Okay, and the second thing, has anyone been out to the point lately, out by Hereford Inlet? I ride my bicycle on that beach. Has anyone gone all the way out and seen exactly what, and I think the last storm was not this weekend, but Melissa? Has anyone seen what has taken place on that sand? If you walk all the way out to the end where Hereford Inlet is, you will pass dunes, and then about halfway out, there is no vegetation, there are no dunes, there is nothing. It's been completely wiped out. So, just as a point of note, there's no nesting going on in that area because there's no vegetation for protection, and there's nothing there except sand. Just wanted to point that out, and if anyone had cause or has cause to go out there, you'd see what I'm saying. But other than that, thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Is there anyone else who would like to address mayor and council? Seeing no one, I will close public comment. Ordinance 1558.
Mayor and council, I move that ordinance 1558 be taken up on second reading.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Will the clerk read the title only of ordinance 1558 on second reading?
An ordinance amending Chapter 473 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Stone Harbor, street openings and excavations.
This ordinance is to streamline the permit process and the fee schedule. We discussed this in the work session, and it's already had its first reading, but it's about street openings and modifications to sidewalks.
The public hearing on ordinance 1558 is open. Public hearing is closed.
Mayor and council, I move that 1558 be passed on second reading and advance to third and final reading.
Second?
Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Will the clerk read the title only of ordinance 1558 on third and final reading?
An ordinance amending Chapter 475, street openings and excavations.
Second. Mayor and council, I move the ordinance 1558 be passed on third and final reading, adopted and published according to law.
Second?
Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Ordinance 1559.
Madam Mayor, I offer ordinance 1559 be taken up on second reading.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Will the clerk read the title only of ordinance 1559 on second reading?
An ordinance amending Chapter 560-35 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Stone Harbor, regulating nonconforming lots, structures, and uses.
This ordinance clarifies an existing ordinance on our book which will allow for construction of new single-family homes on certain lots that are technically undersized. That being said, all new homes on these lots will have to comply with all other aspects of our ordinance with regard to setbacks, coverages, etc.
Will the clerk read the title only? No. The public hearing on ordinance 1559 is open. Public hearing on ordinance 1559 is closed.
Madam Mayor, I move that ordinance 1559 be passed on second reading and advance to third and final reading.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Will the clerk read the title only of ordinance 1559 on third and final reading?
An ordinance amending Chapter 560-35, regulating nonconforming lots, structures, and uses.
Madam Mayor, I move that ordinance 1559 be passed on third and final reading, adopted and published according to law.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Ordinance 1560.
Madam Mayor, I move that ordinance 1560 be taken up on second reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Will the clerk read the title only of ordinance 1560 on second reading?
An ordinance amending Chapter 560-33 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Stone Harbor, regulating height of decks.
This ordinance clarifies again an existing ordinance with regard to third-floor deck heights and where they may be placed and under what specific circumstances the same may be constructed within the borough. In pertinent part, this ordinance clarifies that such third-floor decks shall only be permitted over habitable square footage, and those same decks shall not be allowed to be covered by any permanent structure.
The public hearing on ordinance 1560 is open. Public hearing is closed.
Madam Mayor, I move that ordinance 1560 be passed on second reading and advance to third and final reading.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Will the clerk read the title only of ordinance 1560 on third and final reading?
An ordinance amending Chapter 560-33, regulating height of decks.
Madam Mayor, I move that ordinance 1560 be passed on third and final reading, adopted and published according to law.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Resolution 2019 S-164.
Madam Mayor and Council, I offer Resolution 2019-S-164 for adoption.
Second.
This resolution is for a shared service agreement with Cape May Municipal Utilities Authority for solid waste disposal and also recycling services to cover the calendar year from January 1st to December 31st, 2020.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Resolution 2019 S-165.
I offer Resolution 2019 S-165 for adoption.
Second.
This is a reimbursement of water fees to Regatta Bay condominiums.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Resolution 2019 S-166.
Madam Mayor and Council, I offer Resolution 2019-S-166 for adoption.
Second.
This resolution is for a refund of $400 to Stone Harbor developers for a double payment of a street opening fee.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Resolution 2019-S-167.
I'd like to offer Resolution 2019 S-167 for adoption.
Second.
This is authorizing the mayor to sign and so that we can proceed our FEMA Pre-Disaster Mitigation Assistance Grant with Triad Associates.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Resolution 2019 S-168.
Mayor and council, I offer Resolution 2019-S-168 for adoption.
Second?
This resolution is just to memorialize the paving being done on Paradise Drive currently, that it is not under the 7-year moratorium for street openings. It's just a road resurfacing.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Resolution 2019 S-169.
Mayor and council, I offer Resolution 2019-S-169, change order for the police building.
Second.
This is a change order for the police building for work that needs to be done.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
I need a motion approving several nonprofit requests for support that we discussed at the last work session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? May I have a motion approving the bill list?
I'd like to make a motion approving the bill list and authorize the CFO to pay the bills when the funds are available and the vouchers are properly endorsed.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? At this time, we're about to consider a resolution to go into private session. We would appreciate it if you would all remain seated until the resolution has been acted upon. At the conclusion of the private session, we will come back into public session for the purpose of either taking action as a result of our discussion in private session or to simply adjourn. It is also possible that someone might bring up some other item of business in public session after we come back from private session. Resolution 2019 S-170.
So moved. Oh, offer, I am sorry. I offer Resolution 2019 S-170 for adoption.
Second?
Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Dallahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Kraftcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Parzak? Mrs. Rich?
Yes.